The story of the Garden of Eden is one of the most well-known passages in the Bible, found in the book of Genesis. It describes the beginning of humanity and the moment when sin first entered the world. For Christians, especially within Catholic teaching, the events in Eden are not merely a story, but a profound revelation about human nature, free will, temptation, and God's plan for salvation. According to the Bible, after God created the heavens and the earth, He formed the first human, Adam, from the dust of the ground. God breathed into Adam the breath of life, and Adam became a living being. God then placed Adam in a beautiful garden called Eden, a paradise filled with abundant plants, rivers, and animals. The Garden of Eden was meant to be a place where humanity could live in perfect harmony with God, with nature, and with one another. God gave Adam an important responsibility to care for the garden and to name the animals. However, God also recognized that Adam should not be alone. Therefore, God created Eve, the first woman, from Adam's rib, so that she could be his companion. Adam and Eve lived in complete innocence. They were not ashamed of their nakedness because they had not yet experienced sin. Their relationship with God was open and pure. In the center of the garden were two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God allowed Adam and Eve to eat from every tree in the garden except one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God warned them, if they ate from that tree, they would surely die. This command was not meant to restrict them unfairly. Rather, it was a test of trust and obedience. God had given humanity free will, the ability to choose between good and evil. True love and obedience must come freely, not by force. The command regarding the tree allowed Adam and Eve to demonstrate their trust in God. However, temptation soon entered the garden. The serpent, described in Scripture as the most cunning of animals, approached Eve. In Catholic interpretation, the serpent represents Satan, the fallen angel who opposes God. The serpent questioned God's command, asking Eve whether God had really forbidden them from eating any fruit in the garden. Eve explained that they could eat from any tree except the one in the middle of the garden. She repeated God's warning that eating it would lead to death. The serpent then deceived her by saying that they would not die. Instead, he claimed that their eyes would be opened and they would become like God, knowing good and evil. The serpent's temptation appealed to pride and curiosity. Eve saw that the fruit looked good and desirable for gaining wisdom. She took some of the fruit and ate it, then gave some to Adam, who was with her, and he ate as well. At that moment, everything changed. Their eyes were opened, but not in the way the serpent had promised. Instead of becoming like God, they became aware of their vulnerability and shame. They realized they were naked and quickly sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. Soon after, God came into the garden. Adam and Eve hid because they were afraid. When God asked Adam why he was hiding, Adam admitted that he had eaten the forbidden fruit. However, instead of taking responsibility, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent. This event is known in Catholic theology as the fall. Through their disobedience, sin entered the world, and the perfect harmony that once existed was broken. Humanity lost the state of original holiness and justice that God had intended. As a result, God pronounced consequences. The serpent was cursed. The relationship between humanity and evil would become one of constant struggle. Eve was told that childbirth would involve pain, and Adam was told that work would become difficult and filled with hardship. Finally, Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden so that they could not eat from the tree of life and live forever in a fallen state. Although this moment appears tragic, Catholic teaching emphasizes that God's story does not end with the fall. Even in the midst of judgment, God gave a promise of hope. In Genesis 3:15, it's often called the Protovangelium, or First Gospel, God foretold that the offspring of the woman would eventually defeat the serpent. Christians understand this as the first prophecy of Jesus Christ. Through Jesus, the damage caused by sin would be healed, and humanity would once again have the opportunity to be reconciled with God. Therefore, what really happened in the Garden of Eden was not just the breaking of a rule. It was the moment when humanity chose independence from God rather than trust in Him. Yet it was also the beginning of God. It's a plan of redemption, a plan that would ultimately lead to salvation through Christ.